Hello, Lauren. I know about suicide, thinking about suicide. I've thought about it myself quite a bit, actually. But, you know, it's definitely not the answer. I, uh, I would rather get mean and nasty and fight him to the bitter end than off myself. Anyways, there are things that we can do. We can get organized. We could form a union, apply for a charter. It's a Union of Injured Workers with a charter. That way you can apply for federal funding for legal costs and all that kind of stuff. And we can fight them that way because we need a federal WCB Act. Because then you see, WCB is actually provincial. You could actually vote them out. You could actually get rid of WCB. The only way you can't get rid of them is if they're federal. But if they're federal, then they have to follow a set of rules. Because right now they follow their own act and they write the act. And so they don't follow it. They don't even follow their own operations manual half the time. A friend of mine actually has a copy. You can actually buy a copy of their operation manual right at WCB. You can cost a couple $100, I think. A friend of mine gets it and he gets it updated every year. And then he terrorizes them with it. But anyways, you can do things like that. Uh, I heard that your wife had a visit from the RCMP, little threatening session. If I was you, I'd get in contact with Ottawa and put in a complaint about it. As far as I'm concerned, that's not why the RCMP are around. They're not there so that the WCB can use them as a weapon, as a tool against injured workers. And I know they do because they were used against me. What happened was I phoned up Kevin Gallagher, who I was working for Celtic Contracting. I went to trade school with him, by the way. And I told him when I got injured, as soon as I found out I wasn't going to get my proper WCB and they weren't going to pay me my $1,000 that they owed me, my last week's check. Uh, I phoned him up and I said, "You better get a lawyer because I'm going to sue the fucking shit out of you." Pardon my language. Anyways, he turned around, gutless little worm, coward that he is, and he calls the police, him and his brother. They called the police and said that I threatened to come down and shoot them and their office staff. Totally untrue, never said anything remotely like it. Was in too much pain 2 days after, 3 days after I broke my arm. About the last thing I want to do is threaten anybody. Anyways, I get a phone call from Serba Dmitrievic. He's the guy that brought me onto that job and told me that I was working for Celtic. Anyways, I get a phone call from him saying that Mike Gallagher had called the police and said that I had threatened to come down and shoot him and all his office staff. And he asked me, he says, "Did you say that?" And I says, "No, I didn't." And he says, "Well, I didn't think that you would be that stupid." He says, "There was a 1% chance." He says, "Because I know that you're bad tempered." I says, "Well, you can rest assured I didn't do that." Anyways, I was not interested in having any problems with anybody, not with a busted arm. Anyways, so I just he said, "You better call the cops and find out about it." So I called the cops, and of course you get typical RCMP. "Well, did you say that?" And I says, "Of course I didn't say that." I said, "Stop and think about it a minute. Who would that benefit? Would it benefit me?" I says, "What would happen to me?" He said, "You'd go to jail." I said, "Exactly." I said, "What would it do to the employer? What would it do for the employer if the employer was to phone you up?" He says, "I see." She said it was a female. I says, "Who would it benefit?" She says, "I see where you're going with it." And she says, "I understand." Well, of course it benefits the employer. It makes me look like a bad guy. Anyways, so she says, "Well, she says, we don't have anything on file. Maybe one of the officers in the field's got something, but we don't. So anyways, okay, thank you very much. And by the way, I tape recorded that phone call. And so I went down to the mall. And I didn't think nothing of it. I was going to let it go. I come back. And there's at the time I had a answering machine. And there's a message on it from this constable, whatever his name was. Again, I got a tape recording of it. And he states on the answer machine, he says, Mr. Fernie, he says, you have made, listen to the wording, you have made some rather alarming threats about going down to Mr. Gallagher's office and shooting him and his office staff. We'd like to talk to you about that. Oh, I thought this guy's a real friggin' winner. He's got the brain the size of a pea. I don't know, he must have cheated going through RCMP class. Somebody slipped him the answers because he didn't do it on his own. Anyways, I phone him up, and I get his answering machine, of course, because you can never get directly through him to them because they're always hoping that you say something you shouldn't. Anyways, I leave him a message. I says, listen, moron. I says, you didn't say alleged threats. You said I made the threats. I said, you've already judged me guilty. I said, who the hell died and made you judge, jury, and executioner? I says, for one thing, I didn't make that statement. I said, now if you would care to phone me back on my answering machine and put another stupid ass statement like that, I'll be more than happy to drag your stupid ass into court and sue you for slander. Well, of course, never heard another thing. That was the end of it. Never heard another thing. One day I'm feeling bored and miserable, and I'm looking through my WCB file, which I don't do because I don't like reading that shit. It pisses me off. And I'm reading a telephone log file. Those assholes at WCB, right in there, received a phone call from Mr. Kevin Gallagher of Celtic Contracting today. Said that Mr. Fernie phoned him up and threatened to kill him and his office staff. Now, could you imagine these people put third-hand information like this into a document that could be scrutinized by the public? Because anybody can see this shit. They can find it on the internet if you know how to find it. It's fucking slander. You can't do shit like that. But they did it, you know. And it's going to come to light sooner or later. It's going to come up in court, and they're going to go, well, you can't fucking do this. And you should do the same. You always set down a paper trail, you know. And the next time those sons of bitches, hey, I'll tell you one thing. The RCMP are good for one thing. If the cop gets out of line, he winds up giving fucking tickets to snowmobilers up in Nunavut. That's how they handle it. They don't fire them. They don't fine them. They transfer them. And they're up there in 50 below zero weather. And that's what you do to them. The RCMP is not meant to threaten injured workers. And unless you put something directly, a direct threat, where you're going to actually use violence against somebody, they have no business banging on your wife's or on your door. So I would be doing that, number one. And then you go to the mayor of that community and you complain because he's the head constable. You see, what most people don't understand is the RCMP are hired in these communities. The head constable is the mayor. He's the guy that's actually in charge. So he's the guy you go and see. Say, what the hell is going on here? These people coming to my door threatening me? What the? And you show, say, where's the threat there? Where's the physical threat? Well, they go, you can't really, say, well, screw you. In this country, we have free speech. We can say any goddamn thing we like as long as it's not a threat. Or you're not slandering somebody. But, again, slander is a big term. If you're telling the truth, it's not slander. It's just you're stating a fact. And go ahead, take me to court, prove that what I'm saying is wrong. So there are things that you can do, about those kind of things.